Lewis Hamilton publicly states that he thinks the modifications to his car are a shame. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The air in Maranello has shifted. Not with the arrival of spring, but with the quiet mounting tension of something colossal preparing to emerge. Inside the wind tunnel bays and simulator rooms, behind biometric keypads and frosted glass panels, an army of engineers has been working in secret, not on a routine upgrade, not on a seasonal update, but on what insiders are now describing as a complete mechanical and philosophical transformation of the SF25. The car that has, until now, represented both promise and punishment for Lewis Hamilton is about to evolve. And in that evolution lies a singular question that haunts the heart of the Formula One world. Is this the turning point, or the last breath of a fading dream? Hamilton did not come to Ferrari for money, or nostalgia, or headlines. He came for one thing: to become immortal. To win not just titles, but to write his name into the mythos of a team that has defined motorsport since before he was born. He came to paint a masterpiece on a canvas soaked in expectation. But instead of triumph, he found turbulence. What should have been a crescendo has become a slow, grinding symphony of setbacks, mechanical failures, strategic blunders, qualifying heartbreaks, and a car that seemed to fight against him with every ounce of its carbon fiber soul. From the moment the SF25 touched the asphalt in preseason testing, its flaws were obvious to those who understood how Hamilton drives. The front end lacked bite. The rear snapped unpredictably. The balance shifted mid-corner in ways that left even seasoned engineers bewildered. Feedback loops between the wind tunnel and track data revealed inconsistencies. Setups that looked promising on Friday collapsed by Saturday. Hamilton, who builds his speed through rhythm, who attacks corners with instinct and subtlety, was being forced to drive around problems instead of through them. And yet, he persisted. Through sessions where the car refused to rotate. Through weekends where his feedback was met with silence. Through race strategies that placed him in no man's land. He spoke with grace, but his eyes told the real story. Eyes that once lit up during Friday briefings now darkened with each passing debrief. There were races where he sat in the cockpit long after park firm, unmoving, helmet on, fingers twitching over the steering wheel. There were press conferences where his answers came measured but brittle, like a man speaking from the edge of belief. But now, finally, something is changing. The whisper in the paddock is growing louder, that what Ferrari is bringing to Imola is not just an update, but a resurrection. The new components arriving for the SF25 are the culmination of months of internal conflict, recalibration, and radical decisions. Aerodynamically, the side pods have been redesigned to generate more efficient downforce without increasing drag, using lessons borrowed from Red Bull's bargeboard philosophy. A reworked floor structure allows for cleaner airflow under the car, stabilizing the unpredictable rear through high-speed corners. The front suspension geometry has been altered to increase feedback and precision during turn-in, a crucial tweak specifically requested by Hamilton's side of the garage. Electronically, the energy deployment system has been refined to better match Hamilton's aggressive throttle style. The weight distribution has been subtly shifted, giving the rear tires more predictable load under traction. Cooling vents have been reshaped to allow for higher power unit modes in races without compromising reliability, a change that could prove critical in defending or attacking when it matters most. Every piece of this transformation has a signature, and many of them carry Hamilton's fingerprint. But this isn't just a technical rebirth. This is a cultural one. Ferrari, long notorious for internal divisions, opaque communication, and a hierarchy resistant to change, has slowly begun to pivot. Hamilton's presence, calm but assertive, relentlessly demanding precision, has begun to reshape the way information flows within the team. He has pushed for cross-departmental collaboration, for transparency in simulation data, for tighter feedback loops between drivers and race strategists, for faster iteration, bolder thinking, and fewer political filters. And now, for the first time since he signed the contract that stunned the racing world, there are signs that Maranello is no longer just hosting Lewis Hamilton. It is becoming his. The decision to give him more influence in development meetings was not immediate. It came after internal review sessions where his feedback proved more accurate than predictive modeling. It came after private simulator tests where his lap times consistently exposed weaknesses in aero configurations the team had deemed viable. It came because the engineers, many of whom were skeptical at first, started seeing results. Slowly, Hamilton went from new hire to cornerstone. And Imola, the historic high-pressure, punishing Imola, will be the crucible. The place where months of silence either transform into salvation or collapse into finality. Every component of the new SF-25 will be tested in conditions that leave no room for miscalculation. Narrow runoff areas. Sudden elevation changes. Rapid directional shifts. It is a track that punishes hesitation and exposes weakness. But it also rewards mastery. It is the kind of track where Hamilton, in his prime, forged legends. Now, it may offer a final chance to reclaim one. Because this isn't just about Ferrari. It's about something much deeper. It's about watching one of the greatest athletes of all time claw for relevance in a world that no longer guarantees it. It's about witnessing a driver who once seemed untouchable now fight not for records, but for respect. It's about hearing fans ask with genuine confusion whether he still has it, and knowing that he hears them too. It's about legacy, yes, but also dignity, identity, purpose. And the silence before Imola isn't fear. It's breath held. There is no safety net now. No fallback narrative. If the upgrade fails, it could mark the end of the dream, not just for Hamilton, but for a Ferrari project that has already tested the limits of loyalty from fans around the world. If it works, it could ignite a tidal charge the sport isn't ready for. It could light a fire that changes everything, from team dynamics to the championship table to the very mythology of Formula One itself. No one knows what's going to happen. Not the engineers, not the strategists, not even Hamilton. But everyone feels it, a tension in the air so thick it could be cut with a winglet. The world isn't watching to see if Lewis Hamilton can still win. They're watching to see if he can still rise. And perhaps that's the most powerful question in sport, not whether greatness can dominate, but whether it can endure. Whether after the crashes, the politics, the doubts, the noise, the legend can still hear the call. Whether a fire lit decades ago in Stevenage can still burn bright under the blood-red banner of Maranello. The answer, finally, is coming. The choice to skip Miami wasn't random. It wasn't hesitance. It wasn't fear. It was a precise, almost ruthless decision born from the kind of discipline Ferrari has lacked for years. A cold, calculated refusal to compromise on execution. While the entire F1 circus prepared for the spectacle of South Florida, the flashing lights, the yacht-lined paddock, the artificial marina, the celebrity gridwalk, Ferrari turned inward. They went quiet. While others marketed, they engineered. While others posted, they simulated. Miami was never going to be the proving ground for what they were building. It was too compressed, too chaotic, too unpredictable. A sprint weekend offers no breathing room. Only 1 hour of practice before setups are locked. No margin for experimentation. No cushion for nuance. And this package, this evolution of the SF-25, demanded more than a gamble. It needed precision. It needed Imola. Not just because of its layout. Not just because of its legacy. Because Imola rewards discipline. It punishes guesswork. It's a circuit where a tenth of a second matters more than an entire marketing campaign. Where the walls are close, the rhythm is unforgiving, and every technical upgrade is exposed for what it is, real or illusion. That's where Ferrari wanted to debut the package. Not in the noise. In the truth. And what's coming is not cosmetic. It's fundamental. A redesigned floor architecture built from the ground up, literally. Not just adjusted winglets or modified edges. A full reconfiguration of the underfloor tunnels, designed to regulate pressure gradients more aggressively in lateral load. The new Venturi channel design widens the throat and delays peak suction, giving Hamilton a more stable platform mid-corner without compromising entry speed. This wasn't just a tweak, it was a mechanical rewrite. The floor alone accounted for nearly 60% of the projected performance gain. Above it, the new rear wing assembly tells its own story. Crafted from a lighter reinforced composite material, the main plane was sculpted with a reduced angle of attack, allowing for better DRS efficiency. The beam wing below it isn't just smaller, it's repositioned, re-angled, reshaped. The airflow trajectory was re-optimized to delay rear stall, giving Lewis more control during high-speed direction changes. That translates into confidence. And confidence for Hamilton is lap time. The diffuser has been overhauled as well. The expansion ratio has been recalibrated using flow visualization from the Suzuka correlation tests. Vertical strakes were adjusted by a matter of millimeters, enough to stabilize rear downforce during hard braking. The car won't snap. It won't bite. The idea is to give Lewis that whisper of rotation, the kind he uses to rotate the chassis just before throttle application, without triggering instability. It's not about brute grip. It's about compliance under duress. Then there are the barge boards, no longer passive sculptures but active guides. The new vanes have been angled by 3.8 degrees, pushing air under the side pods with higher velocity and less turbulence. The cooling flow has also been rerouted. Hamilton insisted on a narrower operating temperature window. That meant rethinking the entire heat extraction model. New radiators, new ducting, even a minor reprofile of the internal bodywork. All because Lewis could feel thermal fade by lap 14 at Bahrain. He told them so. They checked the telemetry. He was right, again. But beyond the hardware, it's the process that's changed. Inside Maranello, Hamilton hasn't just been present. He's been instrumental. Obsessed. He's lived in the simulator. Not just turning laps, but breaking them down, challenging assumptions, interrogating variables. He's sat with aerodynamicists, not to lecture, but to understand. He's asked about fluid separation, rake sensitivity, suspension harmonics. He doesn't just describe problems, he reverse engineers them. One engineer recounted how Hamilton stopped a session mid-lap. There's a weird low-pressure bubble building behind the left rear in turns 6 through 9, he said. The team checked. They hadn't caught it. The wind tunnel didn't catch it. The CFD hadn't registered it either. But when they ran a revised simulation at lower yaw angle, the anomaly appeared. Hamilton had felt it before they could prove it. They adjusted the diffuser strake by 2.1 millimeters. It solved the problem. They found a quarter-second per lap in mid-corner rear stability. From a feeling. From a whisper in the chassis that only one man could hear. Lewis isn't just driving the car. He's shaping it. The correlation loop, driver to sim to wind tunnel to real world, has never been tighter. He isn't asking Ferrari to catch up. He's dragging them forward, inch by inch. He's not tolerating limitations. He's eliminating them. Even the brake migration map was rebuilt after Hamilton described a compression lag in the pedal response during transient loads at medium speeds. The team rewrote the calibration code. No other driver even noticed it. And the most remarkable thing? He's not just doing it for himself. He's rebuilding Ferrari in his image. Quietly. Thoroughly. The pit wall communication has changed. The engineering briefings are more focused. There's a new vocabulary around the car now, one that wasn't there last season. Less talk of mitigation and damage limitation. More talk of dominance. We're not playing for podiums, one race engineer said. Not anymore. And yet, the world doesn't know. Not fully. Because none of it has reached the track. Not yet. The cameras haven't seen it. The telemetry hasn't gone public. The stopwatch hasn't told its story. But inside Ferrari they know. The car that rolls out at Imola will not be a marginal upgrade. It will be a declaration. And the rest of the grid? They're already watching. Because once the lights go out and Hamilton takes the wheel of this weapon he's molded, this living machine built around his fingerprints and fury, it won't just be about Ferrari anymore. It will be about what happens when you give one of the greatest drivers in the history of motorsport exactly what he wants. No compromises. No excuses. Just perfection, waiting to be unleashed. Do you want to continue with how the rivals, especially Red Bull and Mercedes, react behind closed doors when they catch wind of Ferrari's new threat? Fred Vasseur knows what's at stake, even if his calm exterior never betrays the full weight pressing down on his shoulders. Behind the scenes at Maranello, the pressure has metastasized into something almost living, a presence that walks the corridors of the Gestione Sportiva headquarters, that lingers in the wind tunnel chambers, that echoes off every carbon fiber panel being assembled for the next race. Ferrari is not just pursuing performance anymore. They are chasing redemption. And Vasseur is at the heart of that mission, wagering not only the team's competitive arc but also his personal credibility on this update package. He has told his closest advisors that there is no fallback plan. No hedging. No soft pivot. These changes must work, not incrementally, but decisively. And if they don't, then the consequences will be swift and irreversible. The direction of the team, the leadership structure, and perhaps even the future of its most high-profile acquisition all hang in the balance. Because the truth whispered behind every closed door in the paddock is growing louder by the day, Ferrari cannot afford to lose Lewis Hamilton, not mentally, not emotionally, and certainly not physically. They cannot risk him switching off, retreating into himself, becoming detached from the project. They cannot risk him asking the unspoken but devastating question, what if this was a mistake? Hamilton didn't come to Maranello for nostalgia. He didn't trade silver for scarlet because of romance. He came for one reason: to win. To write the final chapter of his career on his terms, in his voice, with his own pen. And if the car, this new concept, this supposedly revolutionary design philosophy, fails to deliver the raw pace and reliability he needs, then that final chapter risks becoming a tragedy. In the paddock, the comparisons are already forming like storm clouds. McLaren is no longer rebuilding. They are reborn. Lando Norris has shattered the perception of promise without execution. With a car that evolves race by race, and an engineering team that reads the regulations like scripture, McLaren has positioned themselves as more than just a threat. They're a blueprint for how to execute a turnaround. Red Bull, despite its internal battles and power struggles, remains devastatingly efficient. Their floor alone is worth multiple tenths. And with Max Verstappen still in peak form, the team is not merely defending its title run, it's fortifying it. Mercedes, once mired in aerodynamic confusion and philosophical doubt, has finally found clarity. Their recent upgrades have given them a car that responds, sharply, predictably, aggressively. And in this crucible of excellence and reinvention, Ferrari is wobbling. The data says this latest package should work. The revised floor geometry is supposed to better channel airflow toward the diffuser, improving downforce without inducing excessive drag. The repositioned suspension arms are designed to reduce oscillation through mid-speed corners. The new cooling inlet architecture should theoretically allow more consistent tire performance across longer stints. And the simulator feedback has been cautiously optimistic. But simulators don't replicate heat haze. They don't simulate the aggressive unpredictability of Verstappen diving from 4 car lengths back into a braking zone. They don't prepare you for the psychological warfare of being P9 after nailing a lap that felt flawless. Lewis Hamilton doesn't need hope. He needs grip. He needs rotation. He needs stability on entry and compliance on exit. He needs to know that when he commits to Variante Alta, the car won't snap violently under him. He needs to feel the rear end staying with him through AC Minerali. He needs to stop managing every lap and start attacking them. And if this update doesn't give him that, then the entire premise collapses. Because no driver, no matter how brilliant, can carry a flawed machine forever. And when Hamilton senses the gap between what he is capable of and what the car is willing to deliver, it's not frustration that sets in. It's erosion. A slow, quiet disconnection from the project. It begins in small moments, less feedback in briefings, shorter responses to engineers, increasingly vague comments to the media. The passion doesn't vanish. It withdraws. It protects itself. And when a driver of Hamilton's stature begins to emotionally detach, it's nearly impossible to reel him back in. That's why Imola is more than a venue. More than just a classic revered track on the calendar. This weekend is a crucible. Not just for Ferrari's competitiveness, but for its soul. The Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari will not forgive half measures. The curbs punish greed. The runoffs tempt mistakes. The weather, often unpredictable, forces strategy into chaos. But it is precisely in these conditions that greatness is forged, or lost. And for Hamilton, it is the perfect place to be reborn. Or undone. If the new parts work, if the car responds the way the simulations have promised, then everything changes. Hamilton stops having to improvise his corner entries. The understeer that has plagued him in medium-speed corners vanishes. The bite he needs in high-speed transitions returns. Suddenly, he's able to rotate through Ravazza without lifting. He gains confidence in the rear, stops fighting the throttle, and starts dialing in pure performance. He finds the flow, and when Hamilton finds that flow, he becomes something more than a racing driver. He becomes inevitability. He becomes the version of himself that turned a 32-point deficit into a championship run. The version that surged from last to first in Brazil with such ferocity that even rivals applauded. But if it fails, if the promised improvements prove illusory, then the story turns darker. And faster. Because Ferrari didn't just sign a world champion. They signed an icon. And icons demand fulfillment. If Hamilton begins to sense that he cannot achieve what he came for, not because of age, not because of skill, but because of the machinery, then that fulfillment becomes impossible. The narrative collapses into a cautionary tale. And then the consequences will be devastating. The headlines will turn savage. The sponsors will grow nervous. The engineers will doubt themselves. The internal unity that Ferrari has spent the last 2 years desperately trying to manufacture will crumble. And worst of all, Hamilton will drift away, not in body, but in spirit. And when that spirit leaves the garage, everything else follows. Right now, Ferrari is teetering. The moment is fragile. And the margin for error is microscopic. What comes next at Imola will define not just a race weekend, but an era. Would you like the next section to be a cinematic breakdown of qualifying from inside the cockpit with Hamilton's live radio, or a raw, behind-the-scenes confrontation between Hamilton and Vasseur post-race? And if it fails to materialize, if the upgrades disappoint, if the strategy misfires, if the hope dissolves into another weekend of post-race excuses and missed podiums, then the vision that once electrified the paddock may already be fading into fiction. Not with a bang, but with a slow, agonizing unraveling beneath the weight of expectation. What we're witnessing is no longer just a project in motion. It's a psychological tightrope walk between what was promised and what remains painfully out of reach. The tension is no longer just felt in lap times or radio chatter, but in the air itself. In the stiffness of Hamilton's smile. In the too polite silence after debriefs. In the subtle glances exchanged between engineers who know the numbers but dare not speak them aloud. It's in the way cameras linger on the Ferrari garage longer than usual, as if trying to catch a glimpse of history being rewritten, or perhaps quietly dying. There is a certain electricity surrounding Ferrari this season, but not all of it is optimistic. It's the kind of charge you feel before a storm, when everything is poised to either ignite or collapse. The myth of Ferrari has always been its greatest weapon and its heaviest burden. It is not a team, it is an idea, a legacy, a nation's pride stitched into a scarlet monolith that demands both reverence and results. And now, into that machine of ambition and tradition, Hamilton has been inserted not as a cog, but as a symbol. He is the most accomplished driver of his generation, arguably of all time. But this move was never about collecting one more trophy. It was about meaning, about narrative, about a man chasing not just victory, but immortality. About wearing red not just for style, but for significance. But meaning without results turns toxic quickly in Formula One. There's no patience for poetry when the stopwatch says otherwise. The whispers have already started. Has the Ferrari power unit stagnated again under pressure? Are the floor upgrades delivering only marginal returns? Is the suspension still too brittle under high-deg loads? Did the simulator correlation issues creep back into the car's behavior through Sector 2? Has the team truly understood what Hamilton needs, or are they still trying to fold him into a system designed for someone else? Every free practice session feels like a referendum. Every qualifying mistake is amplified. Every tire choice, every pit call, every post-race comment is dissected under the microscope of a global audience that isn't just watching, they're waiting. Waiting to see if the man who defied odds for over a decade, who battled against injustice and pressure and mechanical failure and political sabotage, will finally break not because of rivals, but because of promises unkept. Hamilton, for all his grace under fire, is human. And behind that composure is a clock ticking louder with each passing weekend. He knows what's at stake. He didn't leave Mercedes to play the long game. He came here to win now. To do the impossible. To be the one who resurrects Ferrari's glory not in theory, but in reality. Because he doesn't need another chapter. He needs an ending worthy of the story. But the truth is brutal. Ferrari has not won a driver's championship since 2007. Since then, the sport has evolved into something faster, colder, more precise. Margins have shrunk. Reliability has become religion. Data drives everything. And yet Ferrari, for all its passion, has struggled to let go of its ghosts. Of internal politics. Of cultural rigidity. Of strategic conservatism wrapped in poetic branding. And now the question is no longer whether Hamilton can lift Ferrari, it's whether Ferrari can hold up Hamilton. In Maranello, they speak of this partnership like a rebirth. They talk of wind tunnel progress, of revised packaging for better cooling, of high-speed corner improvements. The internal emails paint a picture of revolution. But revolution in F1 is not rhetoric. It's results. It's a green light in Q3 when the tires are at the right window. It's a race lead maintained under DRS pressure. It's a strategy call made on instinct that earns points, not regrets. As we approach Imola, everything intensifies. This is not just a home race. This is sacred ground. The Tifosi won't just be spectators. They will be judges, historians, and dreamers all at once. They will chant his name if he delivers, and fall into deafening silence if he doesn't. And that pressure is not just theatrical, it is crushing. No simulator can prepare a driver for the roar of the crowd when he enters a corner wearing red, carrying decades of hope on his back. The engineers know it. The mechanics feel it. The strategists see it in every margin of error reduced to tenths. This isn't just a race weekend. It's a test of Ferrari's soul, and of Hamilton's patience. Because if the car still lacks pace in Sector 3, if the upgrades add only promise without pace, if tire degradation continues to outsmart setup, then belief begins to erode. Not suddenly, but day by day, lap by lap, until even the most faithful start asking questions no one wants to answer. And yet, hope remains, because hope always remains. Hope that the data is real this time, that the rear grip will hold, that the new diffuser will reduce drag without disrupting balance, that the pit crew will execute with precision, that the stars will align, not out of luck, but because the work demanded it. Because if it does come together, if the updates land, if the setup sings, if the car dances through Variante Alta like it was born for it, then something monumental might happen. Something that transcends points and podiums. A moment where legacy, destiny, and machinery all converge into a kind of poetry that F1 rarely delivers anymore. But if it doesn't? Then the silence that follows may not be filled with excuses or media spin. It may be filled with a realization that the dream wasn't stolen, or sabotaged, or slowed. It was simply impossible in the first place. And in Formula One, impossibility has no sympathy. Do you want to explore what happens next at Imola, on the track, in the garage, or inside Hamilton's mind during the race?